I am really, really tired. I'm tired of hearing about lightly melanated women going missing. I'm tired of it. And tonight, we're going to talk about a few things. One of them being indigenous women going missing and black women going missing.
Black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by cops than white men.
They don't want us to succeed.
How much more do we have to take?
Dropping some links in the comments for y'all. It'll be a bit of a long one tonight. Look, we've been talking about this shit for years. It's 2021. People are fed the fuck up. I'm tired of letting this shit go under the radar, to be honest. So let's talk about it. Let's call out the media here real quick, you know? Oh, I got tons of articles telling you. All right, so the first thing I do want to get into is the picture you see. Clearly, maybe you can't see, but it has to do with a website that is a database. It's called MMIWGT2S NYC Plus database. It seeks to bring awareness about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, transgender, and two-spirit people through the development of an unprecedented database capturing the scope of violence against Native and Indigenous women in the New York City and tri-state area from 1900 to today. Note that that's just that area, right? But there's at least a start. And there's a bunch of different services provided, resources that you can find, an anti-trafficking program. Like, it's definitely something that you want to look into. I did drop that in the comments. I want to touch on something that I touched on the other night with the border patrol using those things, and people said that they're whips. They look like whips to me. Apparently, they're not. I don't give a fuck. I don't care what the fuck they are. The fact that you're using it like that and the image that it parades, like, I mean, come on. It's saying a lot. A picture's worth 1,000 fucking words. I don't care what the fuck it is. Why are you trying to get hung up on the technicalities or the specifics of things? What to deflect? Deflection. That's what that is. So I move on from that. I just wanted to touch on that because it really pisses me the fuck off. But what pisses me off more is this whatever the fuck her name is. Um Honestly, I'm just gonna be blunt. I really could care the fuck less about this lightly melanated white girl, whatever you want to call her, um, that went missing. Uh, quite frankly, there are thousands of people of color that go missing every fucking year. The media doesn't cover that. But time after time, let it be a middle class white girl, or even a poor white girl, or even an Amish white girl, it doesn't matter. Let them be a non person of color. We already know what it's hitting for. We know what outlets to look at. We know it's going to be nonstop coverage of the shits. Like, we know what's going on, but when it's a person of color, we get no attention. We get shunned, dismissed, criminalized, sexualized, penalized. And we're quite used to it. I mean, a lot of people of color just take matters into their own hands. Interestingly enough, the other day, someone contacted me about a mother who was looking for her son, who's a young adult. He's black, and she like couldn't find him, and his friends were looking for him, and it was possible that he might be uh in the mental hospital somewhere, but they couldn't confirm that. So it's like, automatically, the as a parent of parents of a person of color, like, you automatically worry about police. You worry if they're going to do anything, which they probably likely won't. But let it be a white family. I don't think that's something that crosses your mind, I'm guessing. The photo that you're seeing is an article from catholicregister.org about reconciliation. It has to do with Canada and the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Honestly, I'm going to skim through this really quick. It says an estimated at least 1,200 Indigenous girls and women were either murdered or went missing over several decades. I'd like to think that that's a little more than that, and that number is quite low. I don't really believe that, to be honest. I think that it's not going to be something that's this database, I think, is a good start, but it looks like it was started in 2015. What the hell's that going to do? I really don't see probably more or less a publicity stunt. And honestly, we've been fed bullshit for so long. We're very skeptical of hearing things like this. It doesn't quell us. It doesn't calm us. It does nothing whatsoever. Just getting a piece of last night or yesterday, what I it became all too real all over again. And this is something I've been paying attention to. I didn't know about this lightly melanated woman gone missing because as soon as I even see a glimpse of anything like that, I tune it out. I do. Because I'm not going to draw more attention to a subject like that when it already gets enough attention as it is. The thing is, all these news outlets have been running it nonstop. Mainstream, I don't follow mainstream unless there is something I need to for context. And for this, I did pull up some articles that kind of explain what I'm thinking. And so the disappearance of Gabby Petito has been widely covered by national media in recent weeks. And efforts to find the missing 22-year-old have spurred protests outside her fiance's home, as well as thousands of posts on social media calling for justice. But her death was ruled a homicide. It's been bittersweet for some families whose loved ones remain missing and uncovered by most media outlets. Um, there's a woman named Derica Wilson who's the co-founder and CEO of Black and Missing Foundation, a national nonprofit dedicated to bringing awareness to missing persons of color on behalf of their families. Imagine if you were a parent of a person of color and is no one's saying your kid's name, but they're saying this girl's name all the time. How do you think that would make you feel? Not knowing if your loved one is safe, if they're hungry, if they're being mistreated, if you'll see them walk through the front door again. That hits you hard as a parent, a sibling, a grandparent. And this woman in the article saying her heart goes out to the Petito family. Mine doesn't. They got enough. Like, pardon me if I'm seeming petty. I don't give a fuck. I have no remorse. I didn't know anything about this story until I started looking into the Gabrielle Petito story, right? The way that shit happened, the way that it's panning out, I don't give a fuck. I'm more concerned about the Black and Indigenous lives and Hispanic and Latinx and Asian lives that go missing every day. That's where my focus is. And until we get more visibility in mainstream media, I will continue to talk about this, whether there's visibility on mainstream media or not. For someone like me, it just really pisses me off. Journalist Ana Navarro Cardenas wrote, "I'm glad Gabby Petito's disappearance has received so much coverage and there's been a vigorous investigation. My thoughts are with her family. I just want there to be the same interest and energy where every disappeared young woman in America, Black, Brown, Native American, transgender." MSNBC host Joy Reid has also fielded criticisms from conservatives in recent weeks for referring to the coverage of Petito as missing white women syndrome. Now, let me stop right there. Because this is a thing. I did not know that this was a thing. And I should have known that this was a thing. But according to Wikipedia, missing white woman syndrome is a term used by social scientists and media commentators to refer to the observed disproportionate media coverage, especially in television, of missing person cases involving young, white, upper middle class women or girls compared to the relative lack of attention towards missing women who are not white, women of lower social classes, and missing men or boys. Although the term was coined in the context of missing person cases, it is sometimes used of coverage of other violent crimes. The phenomenon has been highlighted in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and South Africa. I think this should be more known than what it is because I didn't hear about this before. Have y'all heard about missing white woman syndrome? It should be more of a thing. Anytime the media wants to sensationalize a missing white woman, I don't actually, you know what? I don't even want to give it any attention. I don't. I think the more people feed into it, the more it's just gonna continue to snowball, you know? Although Black Americans only represent about 13% of the US population, they make up roughly 1/3 of the missing persons files reported to the FBI's National Crime Information Center in 2020. And it's frustrating, but it's not surprising. This is one of my griefs with the mainstream media. They're extremely biased. And they're so biased, a lot of people don't even fucking realize that they are. Asa Todd, a host on the true crime podcast Black Girl Missing, told Newsweek, when journalists are looking at these cases and looking at the most interesting, the most salacious, they can't skip over Black and brown missing people because they're not interested in it. It doesn't evoke something in them, or they don't think that their viewership or readership will think that. This woman's podcast explores the stories of Black girls who have gone missing to uncover the truth about their disappearances. And while certain tales might not be covered nationally, she has seen a shift in the conversations on social media that have opened up discussions for those cases. So a lot of time, families of missing Black girls feel like they're screaming into the void because no one except either their immediate circle or communities are pushing for those girls to be found. I think now a lot of people are fed up with not being heard and reaching out and using things like social media and community to help network and expand their search, knowing that the media and the government and local law enforcement are not going to do much of anything. Another thing is that one of the many reasons of the more than 180,000 missing person cases involving Black Americans alone do not receive the same level of media coverage is because that many of them are classified as runaways or criminals, which can drastically also change the shape about the stories around them. So you have on one hand them being criminalized or sexualized, and then the perception of them changes and no one really cares anymore because they assume they assume that you know they're bad people and no one therefore cares about them, and the media downplays it too. Yeah. My thing is, if the perception of Black people were changed all around, there wouldn't be this thing to feed off of, right? Law enforcement oftentimes, especially when a child from the Black community is missing, classifies them as runaways. Runaways are not on Amber Alerts, runaways don't receive the urgency from the general public. And so, in hopes of centralizing information about missing Black girls, this woman and her co-host created the hashtag Aisha Alert, another take on the Amber Alert. And social media can be very disjointed when it comes to looking for missing people. So, in creating that hashtag, hopefully they can create new awareness surrounding women of color in general, not just Black women, but of color in general. And I am going to keep bouncing back between Black and Indigenous lives because there's big similarities here. The article goes on to talk about having enhanced training for law enforcement, but I agree, but I think it goes deeper than that. I think once we start to change the perception of the way that people of color are seen in society, that's where we have to start, I think. Yes. Bobby says, "You right on that though. We have hundreds of thousands of Black and brown women, children, and men right now. Literally right now. We've got Indigenous women being snatched from their residences daily. Reservations, excuse me, daily. And the thing is, like I said, I just now have been following this Petito story. I think she was missing in Wyoming or something like that. I know she's from New York City. But just alone, the amount of women this year, Indigenous women that have gone missing in Wyoming alone, in Minnesota alone, is staggering. But no one's ever talking about that. I think largely lightly melanated people in America don't think about Indigenous people at all, if any, because they don't generally see them. And again, that brings me back to representation and perception and stereotypes. And the more that those stereotypes are fed, the more difficult it is for people of color to be seen as human so that they can get this kind of help and attention. And it's, for someone like me, it's extremely frustrating. It's extremely frustrating because I can't help but get upset and roll my eyes every time I see a lightly melanated woman gone missing and the media covers it left and right. I'm sorry, but I lose remorse personally because it irks me so bad. And it's not a jealousy, it's not an envy. I loathe hearing it because you're not talking about my brothers and sisters. You're not talking about anybody else. Amid search for Gabrielle Petito, imagine if mainstream media covered missing Black women and girls as extensively. Mainstream media rarely, if ever, keep the same energy they have when women go missing if the people who have disappeared are Black women or girls. As outspoken Black people, we're often asked, why make everything about race? It must be an easy question to ask when you're white and severely limited in the capability of fathoming what marginalization looks and feels like, since whiteness is America's default. So when any given situation arises, whether it be a case of police brutality, a school fight, a crime committed, a lost job, an application rejection, or what have you, and Black people wonder out loud how things would be different if the people involved were of a different race. We're often met with rolled eyes, willful indifference, or outright scorn and condemnation for race baiting. Many of you probably heard about the story of Gabrielle Petito, like I'm just hearing. The woman who left New York City on July 2nd for a months-long cross-country trip of sightseeing and camping with her fiance. And if you're not familiar with Petito, like I wasn't, you can Google her name and see her face and story pop up on the New York Times, the New York Post, The Insider, NBC, CBS, ABC, and the Washington Post, and countless other local and national mainstream media outlets. And so there's this whole big thing, domestic assault, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care. The ins and outs of it really are actually telling to white people shit. For real, for real. And honestly, it's no different than any other race and things that go on with any other race. But these lives get highlighted and get held to a higher regard than anybody else. Way more coverage, too. So CBS Mornings had tweeted 22-year-old Gabrielle Petito was documenting her cross-country journey with her fiance when her communication and social media posts came to a halt in late August. Now her parents are searching for answers and their missing daughter. It's just crazy because you don't see anything like this for Black, Brown, Indigenous, Asian, transgender, LGBTQI+, disabled, mentally ill lives at all, ever, if any. And if you do, it's something like Elijah McClain and what happened there, and they're criminalized. Or Ricardo Munoz. Oh, he deserved it because he was wielding a knife. But you're not listening. And I'm going into people being shot here, but the point is the criminalization of these people without acknowledging their humanity. So right off the bat, you're telling people to not pay attention to them simply because they're not worthy of being paid attention to. They're not white, so they're not right. Right? I mean, that's what they tell us subliminally through mainstream media. Any compassionate person is hoping Petito is found safe and returned to her family. And if you're white, that's really all there is to it. But for Black people who notice there isn't anything particularly abnormal about Petito's story that would differentiate it from any other story where someone has gone missing, it's hard not to wonder why this story is receiving so much national coverage, with some networks publishing live updates on the case's progress. This is some bullshit. This is the shit I'm talking about. Like, really. Like, I talked about this before. JonBenet Ramsey. For those, I'm showing my age here, but for those who are listening, that was the 90s, and it was constantly covered. White family. What if Petito were Black? In 2019, the Montgomery Advisor published a story about missing person cases involving Black women and girls in Alabama that went unsolved and underreported. Kimberly Arrington was reportedly abducted when she was 16 and last seen on October 30th, 1998. LaQuanta Riley went missing when she was 19 and last seen on December 7th, 2003. Aubrina Mack left her home on August 15th, 2006 at the age of 21 and hasn't been seen since. Nanette Thompson has not been seen since she was reportedly abducted at the age of 51 on August 9th, 2016. Lakira Goldsmith, missing since November 27th, 2018. She was 20. Kequana Burton, March 6th, she disappeared, the age of 44. Donna Michelle Calloway, last seen on August 28th, 2019. She was 39. The advisor included photos and descriptions of all these women along with numbers to call if anyone has any information on them. But since none of them got anywhere near the same coverage Petito has gotten, with most of them not making it past minimal local coverage, chances of them ever being found are as limited as the reporting on their stories have been. In fact, last year, numerous op-ed pieces and news stories were published detailing the crisis of these cases of missing Black people and people of color, especially Black women and girls, going unsolved and scarcely reported by media outlets that do not have national audiences. The advisor noted in a study that although Black women make up less than 7% of the U.S. population, they represent about 10% of all missing persons cases throughout the country. And that of the estimated 613,000 people reported missing in the U.S. last year, about 60% were people of color. Now, hopefully, Petito is found alive and well. Unfortunately, There are non-white Gabrielle Petitos across the nation who deserve the same attention and sense of urgency but will never receive it. That's why we care so much about race. That's why we make it about race, because virtually everything is about race. This is America. I shouldn't have to keep explaining this, but a lot of lightly melanated people just can't get it through their thick skulls. If you've got trouble with this, seriously, Wikipedia, missing white woman syndrome. Again, the phenomenon has led to a number of tough on crime measures, which makes sense, mainly on the political right, that were named for white women who disappeared and were subsequently found harmed. In addition to race and class factors as supposed attractiveness, body size, and youthfulness have been identified as unfair criteria in the determination of newsworthiness in covering missing women, which does make sense. News coverage of missing Black women was more likely to focus on the victim's problems. And if you think about this, it screams at you, such as abusive boyfriends or a troubled past, while coverage of white women often tend to focus on their roles, such as mothers or daughters. How true is that? How true is that? That's that bullshit. There's an article from news.wtcw.com that speaks on Black Voices, New Missing Persons Project to focus on women and girls in Illinois. And this brings up the same thing we're talking about. Black women and girls in the U.S. are disproportionately at risk for abuse, exploitation, and homicide, especially in the Chicago area. An alarming number of Black women have been killed and their murders have gone unsolved. And even as more Black women and girls have gone missing, community organizations say local law enforcement, government, and the news media are not doing enough. What do you know? That article you can also find in the comments as well. There's another website I want to tell you about is www.gp.org. The article is As Black Women and Girls Go Missing and the Media and the Police Do Little, a national task force is required to address the issue. And so this is asking for help to form a coalition. There's references that provide information and statistics here, which is wow. Yeah. For example, nearly all people reported missing per NCIC of 609,000, over 609,000 reports made in 2019, only a little over 2,000 remained active at the end of the year. Active cases stay in the system indefinitely. You get what I'm saying there? So a good 500,000 cases get thrown out by the end of the year. That's ridiculous. As of December 2019, the NCIC had nearly 87,000 active missing person records. Youth under the age of 18 account for 35% of the records, and 44% of the missing person records are people under 21. The records have accrued since 1983. This is scary. This is very scary. And I'm getting emotional here because Black women, and let's just broaden this here, people that identify as women of color are at the pinnacle of our society. Whether mainstream media wants to acknowledge that or not, they are. But they're the most unseen, the most unheard, the most unnoticed. And now, as we see, as we know, and we have always known, they are very much missing, and no one seems to bat an eye about it. It's frustrating. And so I want to just turn just a bit here, because it does have to do with Indigenous lives, but more specifically, lives in general, and how the church has responded to the atrocities committed by the church and the government. An apology from the Catholic Church for residential schools is not good enough, Indigenous leaders say. This article is from nativenewsonline.net. I did post the article in the comments as well. There's a big picture of Pope Francis. And so a week and a half after 215 children's remains were found on the former grounds of a Catholic-run Indian residential school in British Columbia, many are disappointed by a lack of ownership and apology from the highest levels of the Catholic Church. I'm more than disappointed. I'm at the point sometimes where, I expect this behavior. So the bare minimum doesn't excite me. It doesn't please me. You gotta do more. You gotta bring more to the table to like get my attention. And I'm more inclined to think that a lot of people feel that way too, no matter what your race is on this. I think if you're a Canadian, you can't avoid this topic. It's a hot topic up there right now, right? And I think this was just more or less a PR stunt just to try and quell the voices, but I don't think it really did anything. I might be wrong. This article is from June. So who knows? Again, definitely check out nativenews.net, nativenewsonline.net. They do have free daily newsletters. But my thing is, they don't care about any lives other than their own. And I'm not generalizing all lightly melanated folk. I'm referring to the ones specifically in power and the ones that hold the women of their society to the highest regard and do what they can to protect them at all costs. That's part of the problem. That is the thing that I have largely paid attention to. They've always used their white women as weapons. The Karens, the ones that call out rape when there's no such crime occurring. These things still go the fuck on. They have not stopped. It has not changed except for the times and in the manner and fashion that it fucking happens. And people need to wake up. People need to wake up to that shit. Sex trafficking is a really big problem. And I'm not going down the whole QAnon rabbit hole on that bullshit. But let's be real. I think it was something like 2,000 black women a month or some shit like that. I got to check those statistics again, but it's always like exactly 2,000. And no one likes to talk about that shit. And when people do talk about it, they try to relegate you to some conspiracy theorist. Why? Because I'm talking about black women? What about all those white women that's on the news? Y'all ain't, it's not a conspiracy theory then, but they ain't no different than the black folk and the indigenous folk and the Hispanic folk and the Asian folk that has the same fucking shit happen to them, and they go through the same bullshit too. But ain't nobody talking about them. Why? The mainstream will only sensationalize what they find and deem important and who they think will really take to that and really reel in the viewership. People of color don't matter. They don't exist, obviously, because if we existed, our eyes would matter, our ears would matter, what we think would matter. But according to the mainstream media, that's not the case. So why even bother talking about someone brown? That's missing. Let's just chuck them up to abusive boyfriend. Even if it's not abusive, we can spin it that way. And then no one will care and we can move on to the next story that's more important. I'm pretty sure in some fashion of dog whistling, they do speak that. I'm telling you. Behind closed doors, of course. I can't tell you enough how frustrated and pissed the fuck off I am about hearing about this Gabrielle Petito. My condolences go out to the family, and I already sent prayers up. I don't wish her any ill will or harm at all. But I'm pissed the fuck off. What about all the other women and men and kids and people that go missing? What about the guy that I was told about yesterday? That thank goodness he was found. He's in the hospital. What if he wasn't? We would still be looking for him, and the likelihood of him being found would be very slim. No city or law enforcement is going to do anything about it. They check it out. Oh, are they on drugs? Did they do this? Did they any reason they can to dismiss it? Also, the way our society is and how crazy things are, it's easy to use the ills of society as justification for all these things. We know this. There's another article in the comments. Archbishop Chatlin hopes report on missing and murdered Indigenous women will bring positive change. There was a 2016 Sisters in Spirit event held in Saskatoon, and it's very beautiful. If you check out the article, you'll see the photos from it. I really feel for the families of folk that don't get to hear their loved ones ever again and think that no one hears them. You're not alone. There's hundreds of thousands of people just like you that desperately want and need to be heard. And I'm quite sure when they hear of this petite woman, they're really fucking pissed off. And you know what? You have every fucking right to be. You do. And if no one else is going to talk about it, by all means, do you, boo. Shine it to the heavens, scream it to the heavens till the day you fucking die, please. And if people want to talk about how obsessed you are, how crazy you are, they're the obsessed and crazy ones for not helping do their part to bring about change and help bring your family member home. For real, for real. Because when it comes to community, if you're really about it, you would do that. Speaking of, a friend of mine on Facebook wanted me to share and talk about this. Their friend's loved one went missing about 2 years ago. And I want to share something with you. This is what they're going through every day in and day out. It's not just white people going through this. It's not just the lightly melanated folk. It's all of us. Remember that next time you turn on the news and you see that one woman, not girl, woman, plastered all over the news and newspapers and social media day in and day out, giving you updates on her motherfucking story, but won't tell you about nobody else that has went missing in the same amount of time that the news has been covering her. Ask yourself, what is wrong with this picture? What is wrong with mainstream media? If you do know anything about this particular girl or have any leads, please, shout out, for real. We've got to do what we can to help one another. And it's just interesting that this is coming up now and that this is a topic and that so many different people and articles are talking about it, because it's something that's been on my mind and I've been really frustrated about it. And so I really appreciate others talking about it as well. If you look on YouTube, If you just type in articles, if you I mean excuse me, if you go on Google and search, um, you know, why do black women, why do brown women, why do indigenous women not get same coverage as white women for missing stories? Like any of that of the sort, you will get articles about this. I shit you not, the shit is fucked up. I really want to know what you think should be done or what could be done, not only to change the stereotype, because that takes time, but what can be done as far as mainstream media to call them out, like Black Twitter do their thing. Come on, Black Twitter, what y'all doing? Like something needs to be done to call this shit the fuck out. Or else nothing's going to get done anytime soon. It's just gonna get pushed right over, smoothed over, and another lightly melanated, rich or middle class woman is gonna get all the coverage in the world. And everyone's gonna rally their support around that one woman that I'm sure ain't even poor. Don't have a worry in the world about damn thing. It's interesting the ways of the world, right? Like the fact that our global north countries have enough vaccines to supply themselves 3 times over when most of their population, especially here in America, don't want the vaccine. And they have every right to not want it. I get that. Whatever, cool, do what you want to do. But if these folks don't want it, why are you letting them waste away to the end of the year when there are hundreds of other motherfucking countries that want them vaccines and need them? What the fuck is wrong with this world? That's the way of the world. But people don't bat an eye at that. I pick issue with that. I don't know about you. I think people have gotten so used to or born into things that just seem normal that they don't realize how backwards it is. They're not, some people don't ever wake up. And you know what? I don't know. Because I wish they would. I wish everybody would wake the fuck up, quite honestly, to the atrocities that are going on. Not to let it scare you or continue to like haunt you, not so you can replay it over in your head, but so that you can let it touch you in a way to activate something, to do something, to motivate you to do your part to help out, for your fellow people, to help out for your fellow family, your fellow humanity. That's my hope. That's my goal. That is my wish. People have to understand family's not everything, but your life is. Wouldn't you want someone out there to cherish your life if you went missing? I'm really not trying to be angry. I'm really not. Because I went into this really angry, um, and maybe a little bitterness. And I think that's reflective of me as a person of color, seeing things happen left and right to black, brown, indigenous people of color, and nothing happened. But then a white woman comes along every single time, and the media goes into a frenzy. And even people of color will jump on the bandwagon too, but they won't do the same for their own. To me, that's a problem. That is a big problem. Can we not just care for our own, but care for everyone, please? Can we just care for everyone because it's the right thing to do? Not fuck them other people? Like, can we get back to the basics here? I don't. I could sit here and say, "Oh, it's not fair," but no one cares. The media doesn't care. It's always important to know the power that you hold within you and how you could take matters into your own hands. I'm not saying go do violent things. I'm not condoning those kinds of stuff. What I'm saying is speak your truth, stand up for yourself. And if no one's going to go out and spread the awareness about your loved one that is missing or people that are missing and you haven't seen or heard from them in such and such time, reach out, fam. Go spread it to the heavens as far and wide as you can. Social media is a tool. Social media is your friend. Community is your friend. Do it. I personally will do my part from this point forward to make sure that I'm highlighting any missing person story of a person of color and creed that is not lightly melanated white women. Because I want to do my part to help bring coverage, visibility, and awareness to the people that are not getting it. I'm not saying fuck you to those people that get tons of coverage, but I don't care about them. They get enough coverage. The people that need the help are most vulnerable. They need the attention. They need to be heard, and that's where we all come in. And I'm saying that for me, that's what I am going to pledge to do from now on. I want to know what y'all think in the comments. Drop a comment. Give me your opinion. Let me know your frustrations. If there's something I missed, an idea or thought that popped up in your head, let me know. Because, man,